Hello, and thank you for joining us on the Capitol Report on NTD television. I'm your host, Steve Lance. The gunman in the Texas school shooting posted warnings minutes before the attack on his social media account. What did he write? And what is the president saying today about public safety? NTD's Iris Tao has more.
The gunman shot his grandmother in the face.
More details on the gunman who killed at least 21. Texas Governor Greg Abbott says the 18-year-old high school dropout shared on Facebook just minutes before shooting up the elementary school.
He said, "I'm going to shoot my grandmother." The second post was, "I shot my grandmother." The third post, maybe less than 15 minutes before arriving at the school, was, "I'm going to shoot an elementary school."
A spokesperson for Facebook later clarified that those were one-to-one text messages. Officials also revealed on Wednesday the gunman stormed past an armed guard to enter the school carrying a rifle he had purchased just days ago. Meanwhile,
I'm sick and tired. I'm just sick and tired of what's going on. It continues to go on.
President Biden addressing the shooting again today, pushing for what he calls common sense gun reforms.
The idea that an 18-year-old can walk into a store and buy weapons of war designed and marketed to kill is, I think, just wrong.
Biden claims that such reforms will not hurt Second Amendment rights, while adding,
Second Amendment is not absolute. When it was passed, you couldn't own a cannon.
Biden also calls out gun manufacturers, which he has accused of marketing so-called assault weapons to make profits.
Where's the courage to stand up to a very powerful lobby?
And President Biden is reportedly planning to visit Texas following the Uvalde school shooting. It could come as early as this weekend and will mark the second time in just weeks he has visited a site of mass shooting. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Iris Tao, NTD News.
The National Rifle Association is set to hold a conference on Friday. It has been planned for months, and former President Trump, Texas Governor Greg Abbott, and Senator Ted Cruz are all scheduled to speak. The country lost 19 young souls yesterday and 2 of their teachers in that evil act of violence that took place in Uvalde, Texas, at the hands of a deranged 18-year-old gunman. Retired Lieutenant Col Alan West resides in Texas, and we're grateful to have him on with us. Col Alan West, thank you so much for joining us on the Capitol Report.
My pleasure. Appreciate you having me.
Colonel, our hearts go out to the families and victims of this terrible tragedy. How is the state of Texas coping with this the day after?
Well, it's very hard, without a doubt. I have been down in Uvalde several times. I know the community. I know the mayor down there. Is a very tight-knit community, not far away from the border. And, of course, they're dealing with the everyday crisis of the open borders that we have. But to have this happen and to the children there in the elementary school, it just rocks them to the core. And it's something that affects us here in Texas. We've seen it with the Sutherland Springs shooting at the church that we had. And, again, this was something that could have been preventable, because the assailant in that church shooting, his record was never uploaded into the database of having a domestic violence charge against him, a felony offense, and also a dishonorable discharge from the United States Air Force. So we want to make sure that we're protecting our children. And I think the biggest lesson learned right now is that we spend so much money and take so many precautions at sporting venues or concerts, entertainment venues, Academy Awards, whatever. We've got to do better protecting our children.
Colonel, that brings me to my next question. What, if anything, could have been done, do you think, to potentially have prevented this tragedy from happening?
Well, I think if you go back and look at what just recently happened 10 days ago in Buffalo, we have the indicators and warnings that are there. You look at these social media posts that are being done, and we have got to have people that act on that. You can get kicked off of social media talking about vaccines or having a different perspective on COVID. But yet when we see the violence that is out there, nothing is being done. The other thing that we have to do, without a doubt, we have got to have the continual surveillance and engagement with people that have these mental health issues, issues. We saw that in Buffalo, where the person was brought in for an evaluation and then was never re-engaged after that. The exact same thing happened in Parkland at that shooting, where Nicholas Cruz had 21 call-outs to his home, but yet nobody ever followed up on any of that. So we have got to do a better job of that, as well as protecting our children and hardening our schools. And let's look at some of the veterans that we have here in Texas and other states, that they can be employed as school security guards and making sure that they control those entry and access points.
Colonel, do you think we need to take a deep dive into our culture at moments like this and find out what's missing potentially from a spiritual and moral standpoint?
Oh, without a doubt. You know, I have told people, when you push God out, you allow the devil to come in. But even more so, when you look at the violent content that we're exposing our young people to, when you look at the disregard for life, look at the debate right now that people who want to murder children inside the womb. We have a lack of regard for life right now in the United States of America. And that's the number one inalienable right that is granted to us from our Creator God. So we have got to restore that respect for life. We have got to make sure that we're not exposing our young people to all of this violence. And without a doubt, this shooter down in Uvalde, we have some questions about the mental condition of gender dysphoria, because I've seen some of the posts that he had put out there with that as well.
Colonel, to your point, I mean, faith seems to be taken out of the conversation every step of the way. Faith and belief in God not only teach, morally what's right and wrong, but also gives us the strength and conviction to pull back from making poor decisions. Is there a way to have God back in the national discussion without it being politicized?
Well, I think it should be, because the foundation of this country is a Judeo-Christian faith heritage, but it comes back to parents. I mean, this starts in the home. It starts in our churches. It starts in our communities. And we have got to have that discussion there and not allow the secular humanists who try to say that you cannot have these discussions out in public. You cannot have these symbols. I mean, think about the 10 commandments. Thou shalt not kill. And so maybe we should be going back and making sure that our kids understand those very basic rules about a moral and just society.
It's an excellent point, Colonel. What do you think President Biden's message needs to be to the country right now as the nation mourns this tragedy?
Well, he had the wrong message last night. He started out very well, being compassionate, trying to be a healer, but then he pivoted and went straight to the politicization of this and talking about gun control. This is not about taking away an enumerated right for the American people. If anything, we need to have safe and responsible gun owners. We need to make sure that people with the mental illness, like we saw in Sandy Hook, the young man there, Adam Lanza, had access to firearms, and we knew he had a mental illness. And so those are the type of things we need to make sure that we're doing, is having those protections within the home. And we need to have those discussions, and we need to stop allowing our young people to be influenced by so much violent content that we see out there on the internet, on television, and what have you. So the most important thing for him is to not politicize this and not try to turn this into a gotcha moment, not allowing a crisis to go to waste, as Rahm Emanuel would say.
Col Alan West, thank you.
My pleasure. Appreciate you having me on. Prayers go out to Uvalde, Texas.
Indeed. The results are in for some key primary races. Former President Trump's endorsement was put to the test in some key races. NTD's Melina Wisecup has more.
How powerful is Trump's support? In Ohio primaries earlier this month, it showed itself to be a weighty endorsement. But for Georgia, the power was more watered down. Incumbent Governor Brian Kemp is the winner of Georgia's Republican gubernatorial primary. Now he'll face Democrat challenger Stacey Abrams this fall.
Tonight, the fight for the soul of our state begins to make sure that Stacey Abrams is not going to be our governor or the next president.
Kemp won by more than a 50% margin over his Trump-endorsed opponent, former U.S. Senator David Perdue.
And I congratulate you, and I want you to do the same thing, right?
He wasn't the only Trump-endorsed candidate to lose to a sitting official. Congressman Jody Hice lost his bid for Georgia's Secretary of State to incumbent Brad Raffensperger. But Trump's endorsement showed strength for a crucial Senate seat. Herschel Walker is the projected winner in Georgia's Republican U.S. Senate primary and will face the current Democratic Senator Raphael Warnock in November. And Georgia is a crucial state to watch this year as far as the Senate is concerned, because if Republicans are able to hold all of the seats they have and flip just this one seat, it could change the party who's in power over in the chamber. And we are expecting to see a tight race between Warnock and Walker this year. Walker took around 800,000 votes, with Warnock taking around 700,000. So if a similar number of voters head back to the polls in November, the margin separating the winner could be slim. And on the House side, Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene and Democrat candidate Marcus Flowers will now compete for Georgia's 14th District House seat. But the area is strongly Republican, so flipping it blue is a long shot. And in Texas, there's a battle between progressive and moderate Democrat ideologies. Just around 200 votes separate current Congressman Henry Cuellar and his progressive challenger Jessica Cisneros. Cuellar is pro-life and has pressured the Biden administration to get the border crisis under control, while Cisneros aligns with the progressives' immigration policies. She was endorsed by self-described socialist Senator Bernie Sanders, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and others. This race will either give the progressive wing more power on Capitol Hill or restrict it. Reporting in Washington, D.C., Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.